Hello there and welcome to The Value of Everything. So, just as I completed the Culture Clash episode in relation to Enoch Powell and the Rivers of Blood speech, we had in the background WikiLeaks releasing Vault 7, which detailed a number of snooping tools the powers have to watch over their citizens. Now, beyond just Samsung TVs listening to what you're doing, one of the more interesting parts was the meme warfare. Now, before we delve deep into this, obviously we might not be able to accept everything on face value. There could be disinformation involved, but I think just taking it on its logical trajectory, you can see this kind of thing materializing. It's the old ancient art of propaganda to assume more power and control over the masses. And because we live in a multi-interest, multicultural society, then we do have two tribes going to war. Probably more than two tribes, probably hundreds of tribes going to war. Now, there seems to be some kind of article from NATO stating on the lines that tomorrow's US military must approach war fighting with an alternative mindset that is prepared to leverage all elements of national power to influence the ideological spheres of future enemies by engaging them with alternative memes to gain advantage. Memes are units of cultural transmission or a unit of imitation, and as ideas become means to attack ideologies, meme warfare enters into the holy conquest, the hotly contested battlefields inside the minds of our enemies, and particularly inside the mindsets of the undecided. Formations charged with information operations, IO, psychological operations, PSYOPs, and strategic communications, SC, provide an existing construct for memes and the study of memes, memetics, to grow and mature into an accepted doctrine, discipline, epidemiology of insurgency ideology, using the analogy that ideologies possess the same theoretical characteristics as a disease, particularly as complex adaptive systems, then a similar method of routine can or should be applied to combat them. Memes can and should be used like medicine to inoculate the enemy and generate popular support. Private sector meme applications. 3M Corporation employed an innovation meme designed to cultivate an employee culture which accepts and embraces innovation in product development. As a practical matter, M3 executives endorsed and employed the lead user process in product development, which translated into 30% profit increase. Innovation memes was the key to M3's profit increase. The proposed Meme Warfare Center, the MWC, as a staffed organization, has the primary mission to advise the commander on meme generation, transmission, coupled with detailed analysis on enemy, friendly, and non-combatant populations. So that is fairly interesting. Even if this is a fake, you can see that there's somebody very bright behind this who is controlling the airwaves. So I definitely wouldn't discount this on face value, particularly when propaganda has been happening since the dawn of time. Another thing that I found on the internet was the proposed Meme Warfare Center. So it had a little bit of a diagram and a chart. It said that this proposed Meme Warfare Center, MWC, has the primary mission to advise the commander on meme generation transmission, aims for a full spectrum capability of meme generation, analysis, quality control, assurance, and organic transmission apparatus. The proposed MWC structure lays in stark contrast to the ad hoc nature of current IO and JPOTF formations. So yeah, this is a big organizational structure where you can see a lot of taxpayers' money is being thrown to. Really, what you can determine from this, I'd imagine, is that you've got like the Hollywood structure of releasing a movie. So firstly, a movie is created, then it gets put in front of an audience or maybe a target audience, and then they come back with reviews, what scenes they liked, what things they didn't like. This detailed analysis makes the editors change the cut of the movie, and then it gets re-established, so the meme gets amended as well, and then it gets sent out to the masses again. Typically, this is just a copy of what would be created. When you create a piece of art, you're putting forward an argument, a cultural argument in that respect. Maybe people haven't got the attention span of movies anymore, so we're dropping movies and we're moving into, say, symbolism or even just a tiny little viral video which can grab the target audience and persuade the masses in a political theory or view to change the vote ballot to sway to one party to the other, so that the vested interest of the lobbyists or where the money is rolling, they get in power over the other people. Or say, for example, America has interests in another country leaning to one political side from another, then they would insert a number of memes into that country just to change the ideology of the people, so that they can ensure that that political party which favours them is in power. The interesting thing here is that on this diagram as well, there mentions that military memes, there's a little insertion below it which doesn't actually get completed, but military operations provide memes both intended and unintended. The unintended effects of memes are normally regarded as second or third order effects. On occasion, second and third order effects are the product of deliberate planning. However, many times they cannot be accurately forecasted. Memes, as defined above, are cultural bits of information replicated and transmitted from mind to mind. Memes influence, affect, generate, and alter ideas. A central theme behind this replication and transmission is individual and societal contact and interaction. Contact in this sense connote both direct and indirect means. Contact with enemy friendlies or the community at large provides a vehicle or medium for, and then we finish there. So again, more interesting stuff there. I guess when we produce something of art or we release a Hollywood movie, there is obviously the propaganda that it's trying to create. It's an argument that it's trying to send out to the people. Say, for example, embrace globalism, but then maybe there's a backlash to that. Say, for example, with the new Ghostbusters movie, the main characters were all female, and that created a backlash. You could almost go so far to say, was backlash intended, and then created this big man wave of people hating feminism? Again, we might be living in a double bluff environment. So you can have first wave intentions, and then you've got a second wave or third wave which you're not too sure about and what creates from that. But then also you can create and I haven't really read into this, but I can imagine what could happen as well, is that you can create an anti-culture wave by sending out certain message and then creating the backlash of that afterwards. When there's forums and discourse on YouTube or anywhere else, all these armies of people who are involved in a meme and who want to propagate this meme potentially could mean that you might be outgunned in a forum. You might be trying to put out logical arguments, and then an army of different people are coming back at you going, what the hell is going on? Why all these rhetoric-based arguments are coming back at me? And also, why are these people just going for the ad hominem argument? Then we can go one step further. If they've got all the tools and apparatus, then no doubt AI could be thrown into this mix. Again, I wouldn't worry too much because you can feel and it can't. So where does this sort of connect the dots in the status that we live today? One interesting part is if you ever looked at Donald Trump's Twitter feed before any positive remarks come back on him, today's date is the 12th of March 2017, most people go back at Donald Trump with fairly positive comments. He's been working very hard, he's been increasing employment, so I would imagine on his popularity statistics he'll be doing quite well. Yet on Twitter feeds, he just gets a roll of negative comments which come in before anything else. And some of them are very funny as well. So there's a lot of engineering and thinking behind disrupting Donald Trump's presidency in just a Twitter feed. But obviously there's a whole number of nuances that you can think of there. The unintended effects of second and third wave is very interesting. One of the conspiracy theories that has been flown around beforehand is that, say, the elites wanted to put Hitler in charge. He was part of a secret service, and basically he took over too much, and there was an unintended consequence of Hitler rising to power because he ended up exterminating the Jews and taking over most of Europe, when it really was just to augment the field of war. Or potentially he was put into power as a mechanism to again propagate the military-industrial complex. We don't necessarily know from saying Hitler going into power, and because we know there's the Bush money involved as well, we don't necessarily know that there was second and third wave effects of putting a man in power like that. Now, that's obviously conspiracy theory talk, but it's an interesting thought experiment to put your mind in gear to this meme forecast and what it can create. In the meme warfare, particularly the battlefield of the internet, there's been a number of ideas of where the memes have come into power. So a number of them have been the fall of the Bush presidency. You've got the Brexit, so where Britain leaves the EU. And the biggest memes which came out was during Trump's presidency. I doubt very much Hillary Clinton had the best ones. It was Donald Trump which had some brilliant ones all the way through. I remember a Star Wars piece where he had an X-Wing fighter and he was taking out the Death Star. If you can think about how culturally they changed the mindset of people, it definitely has very profound effects. So just to get a little bit more background on this meme warfare, there's something called meme engineering. There's a number of different articles which come out, but there isn't actually any information on meme warfare itself. But I do want to just give this person a mention. There was a lady, Rhiannon Tenenhouse Eisler. She is a cultural historian, system scientist, educator, attorney, speaker, and author who works on cultural transformation and has inspired scholars and social activists. She introduced the term domination culture, where basically it describes a top-down system or ranking backed by fear or force, so man over man, this dominance and oppression sort of situation where it happens in religion, tribalism, and it's a rigid male-dominant society. The acceptance, even idealization of violence as a means to impose will on others. This system of beliefs represents relations of dominating or being dominated. And obviously the biggest domination model includes like the Nazis in the past. So that's some of the cultural analytics that she's done there. Also there's the partnership society, which is a contrast of what she's mentioned before, where it's basically a situation where there's mutual agreement or contracts, voluntarist society, which is something that I agree on. So there's just this mentioning of a economic policy and traits, which really just does give us this non-domination society and really brings out more desirable and mutual respectable ideas to the forefront. So that's what she encapsulates as a partnership society. One of her parts to play was an example of macro-historical mimetic engineering analysis. explaining how domination or patriarchy, warfare, and violence are culturally programmed. So there is a book which he produced called The Chalice and the Blade. This is where she talks about the domination partnership cultural thesis. But a memetics engineer could be able to isolate, study, and subtly manipulate underlying value systems, symbolic balance, and primal atavisms that unconsciously influence individual psyche and collective identity. A highly educated but susceptible intelligentsia, worldwide travel, and information vectors like internet, cable television, and tabloid media means that hysterical epidemics and disinformation campaigns can become more common. This warfare will be conducted using aesthetics, symbols, and doctrines as camouflage that will ultimately influence our cultural meme pool. So I imagine that the book, The Chalice and the Blade, will be very insightful of the future to come. I think one of the things that she's getting at in that book is that she's mentioning that human potential is really muted when there is a dominator in society, and really to unleash us, we need to live in more of a voluntarist society. I'm not really sure whether she has got any connections to the military side of meme warfare, but particularly where she comes from, this anti-domination stance, which military is mostly all about. So Riane Eisler is a very interesting person to look into. You do get this sense of the collective consciousness, which is good if you never want to be too far different, but it's bad if you're being herded to the slaughter. Collective consciousness does sound like that thing with which futurists will always talk about, even myself, reaching the singularity where we all input our ideas and thoughts and become some kind of collective, which doesn't make me feel too good. I do like individualism and independent thought. You can see what the kind of battlefield which is being created, this cyber warfare. We get this idea that cyber warfare is all about Trojan horses and screwing up nuclear power stations. Really, if you can control or propagandize the minds of the people, that is the more important warfare. So what can we expect in the future? Well, I'd imagine there's going to be a lot more viral videos that will be tapping into our primal instincts. You can't help but think, if you've ever seen the YouTube video from Paul Joseph Watson, his videos always hit a viral level position. And he does have very strong arguments with what he puts out. But then also he really cements it with this pathos, the appeal to emotion. And he is connected with InfoWars, Alex Jones, CIA family. Even I enjoy them in a way, because of how cleverly they are put together. You do have to take one step back and think, okay, is there an ulterior motive behind this? Obviously, if you will accept the mainstream stance of where Paul Joseph Watson is, he's an independent thinker, he's working as an activist for a libertarian news network, but he does work in support of Donald Trump, which is now the mainstream of power. So questions arise as to the genuine nature of who he is. And even just as like a personal opinion, he's a very funny guy. He's got that northern accent, which is very good at slapback comedy, talkback, which is brilliant from his accent, which is somewhere up north, not too sure whereabouts, probably Yorkshire or something. And then you potentially have more of these agents of memes. So some of the people I find a great interest in, maybe their influencers as well, is like your Donald Trumps, your Alex Joneses, your Stefan Molyneuxs, your Milos, your David Icks. All of these people both have my respect, but also I take one step back and go, is there something else going on? So Donald Trump appears to be looking after the Rust Belt class of workers who have had their livelihoods snatched away from them. But on the other hand, he does seem to be a little bit questionable when it comes to taking too much power, not really questioning the power of the intelligence agencies and to have too much, is willing to embark on warfare without really questioning whether that warfare is moral or not. So there's those little items there. Alex Jones already mentioned CIA connections. CIA is a multi-tiered, multicultural organization where there's probably some very pro people who are pro-American for the American interest, and then there's probably some foreign agents involved as well, and we don't know how that organization is really working. It's a multi-celled, almost like a terrorist network. It works on those same principles. Stefan Molyneux, he really is the main philosopher on the internet to this day. He resonated with me with messages of voluntarism and anarcho-capitalism. Really made me think a little bit more, gave me more thinking tools itself. However, he gave up all of that, and he was an atheist as well, and he really just gave up all of that to support Donald Trump and became very supportive of Christianity as well. It's fine, people can change over time, but I guess he would stance himself as a principle-based philosopher. If he was sticking to his principles, he would be, again, anti the state and opposed to Donald Trump even assuming power. Where we question these things of power and tyranny, I would expect somebody like Stefan Molyneux to be like an attack count onto Donald Trump. But really, he is probably one of the greatest defenders of Donald Trump. He's really puts out a case to defend him every time, which I guess he will argue and he will debate the fact that Western civilization is at a crossroads and it's not really time for him to start questioning things like the power of the state and Christianity, because they are still our last defense of Western society. So he's not going to work as an attack dog for that, but respect that for the meantime until problems like mass migration and things that are destructive to the Western society, and then he will come back. But for the meantime, this person who would appear like a martyr for a lot of people does now appear to be working for mainstream governments. Milo, again, really captivates the audience. He's fantastic at debating, and he really goes against like cultural Marxism or whatever that is, and really is becoming a iconic star, but he's recently fallen down to grace. It's interesting how he has risen to fame. I remember back in the day, he used to start these crazes where you would dance in Liverpool Street. I think it's called a flash mob, to Thriller and stuff like that. So he was one of the people that originally started that, and that's really about like changing cultural meme. You could almost devise that as a cultural meme. He's working as like some kind of positive agent in the background. David Icke. Incredible amount of knowledge, a fantastic amount of knowledge what he puts out all the time, but then he puts out all these red herrings of, say, the moon is a giant soul-churning machine, there are these sub-aliens which we live with, but there's no real evidence other than just the fact that he's heard it from a number of different sources. There is not the solid evidence. Yeah, all the other arguments that he puts out are really massively solid evidence documents which are released by governments, and like the evidence and research is amazing there, and then it goes by word of mouth somewhere else. So there's massive inconsistency with David Icke here. I always think it's very good just to cast a different type of light on these people. Your heroes can be enemies. It's well documented throughout history. And these are really more of like your main proponents of right-wing, libertarian, Tea Party kind of stance people. But they all talk to each other. They all have some kind of connection. Just from my perspective, when we hear about things like cultural Marxism, and then I speak to somebody like Michael Cunha, where we've had a number of debates, really, it's not even an argument from Michael's position. He doesn't have any interest in that kind of stuff. Yeah, we get thrown at all of these things about, this is what the left is, this is what the left represents, They're all about pronouns for the sexual orientation of people. I haven't even had a conversation with Michael about this, but I'd imagine he's really not interested in that whatsoever, and it doesn't either support his cause as well. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm giving up the dog of my libertarian anarcho-capitalism views, but it does definitely make me rethink as to what we are being force-fed and what is actually nutritious news food. Just something else to add to this is that we always think about the news feeds, and we've got Facebook Zuckerberg mentioning about him thinking about sorting news results to get rid of all the disinformation. And this is another, obviously, a big thing of censorship and propaganda and stuff which is occurring here. This is probably one of the more dangerous things. So you think it's quite DB to say, oh, you really should outlaw how search results work, but the mind works by the first piece of information that someone gets can be the most influential, and then that can just put them on a path to think that way forevermore. So, say if I was always raised by a right-wing fascist thinking family, I would be always on that journey. It would be really a long way before I would have the tools to think and reflect on things before I'd question my thinking and potentially reject my stance. So the order of search results is so important, and if that is meddled with, which probably is already meddled with now, then that's questionable. But really, I guess when it comes to the individual, it's like if you've got a question in your mind and it's not being answered, do not settle for that first result. You really need to dig until you are satisfied to the gut. I guess with all these famous influential people, they all have a particular charm. They do look like activists. They do look like fighters of the people. That is always consistent with each one of these. I have got your best interests in heart. Remember, empathy, even though we all say it's a very important thing, it's a very humanist thing. Empathy is also a predictive machine. Your prediction someone's acts of how to manipulate someone. So empathy is a very fantastic thing for connecting, bonding. I think it creates meditocin or something like that, a chemical release as well, which is quite akin to the feeling of heroin. But empathy can also make you a much better trained killer. And also we're working in this trust society. We're finding trust in these people. They're bringing out these truth bombs, which our education system, which has all just been about filling our brains with information but never really giving ourselves any tools to think. These people are becoming really trusted, but also consider that the bigger they are, the harder they fall. The greater trust that you have in someone, the bigger the disappointment they are. Really, if you look at most political leaders, whether it be from the UK or whether it be from America, they always take on this stance that they're going to be this big changer, they're going to really fix things, and they always lead to be a great disappointment. I always find this quote quite funny. Lenin actually mentioned that trust is good, control is better. So we don't really know what is going on here, who is being controlled, and if these are very upstanding, trust-natured people. We really will not never know these really important questions. So it really does take us to think about what their actions are and whether those actions are justified or not, and they really resonate with people's moral values. We always lack knowledge, therefore we have to hold certain beliefs. And really, we can only hold those beliefs for so long until they just get whacked and new information comes along. So the message is trust nobody. And I would even go so far as to say not even yourself, because you do not know how many memes or cultural influences that have been targeted upon you, which has given your blueprint of thinking right now on a conscious or even subconscious level, how to work your day or how you're going to be successful in life. But that might not even be something that really is going to make you happy. So we go back to the old ancient philosophy of know thyself. And a little adage I'll put in there as well is that just go on your gut instinct, get a grasp of logical tools of thinking, and then just build on from there. Try to erase everything that is potential conditioning, because you're your own agent, and really it is so important to have independent thought, stand on your own 2 feet and talk against those masses, because the masses, they can only think as the weakest person, and you're empowered because you've got agency of your own thoughts and you can move and think far quicker than the masses. So thanks again for tuning in. I really would like to hear any of your thoughts on this in relation to how this meme warfare is hitting the media and is influencing the people around you. It'll be very much appreciated if you can like, subscribe and share. I'm a small guy in a big pond, and there's some very big predators out there. So thank you again.